this is Karen, Coach's Corner Chats, and on the episode today, I have JoJo Juarez. JoJo, where are you at, and what are you up to?
First off, thanks for having me. I am in Tyler, Texas. I am in the heart of deep East Texas. I am currently the director of coaching for FC Dallas East Texas on the junior side. So really quickly, we define juniors by being kind of everything 10 and below, age 10 and below, and then select or competitive is everything 11 and above. So I oversee everything to do with our juniors/academy groups here for the club. And that's kind of my day-to-day role with them, not including everything we do kind of on an outreach basis as well, which is pretty much all kind of my jurisdiction as well. So camps, clinics, programs, coaching education, stuff like that as well. So we pretty much encompass almost the entire East Texas area. So we've got teams and we've got programs in maybe 30 different cities players from about 30, 40 different cities in the East Texas area. It kind of located in these little pockets geographically all over East Texas. And we're obviously mainly centered in Tyler. But we've got small affiliate branches all across East Texas as well.
So is FC Dallas East considered like it's like a satellite?
We are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are an official affiliate of FC Dallas Youth over in Frisco. So we are about depending on how fast probably you drive, probably about 2 hours from the main club up there in Frisco. From Dallas, we're about an hour and a half, but then you got to jump on the tollway and go another 30 minutes north to get up to Frisco. But we are an official affiliate of FC Dallas Youth. And we obviously kind of handle everything in the East Texas area. So we're quite unique. I know that there's a lot of MLS clubs that do have affiliate clubs located geographically kind of all over. We're unique in the sense that we are geographically very, very close relatively to the main club. So our day-to-day with the main club is a lot more intimate than probably most satellite or affiliate clubs for other clubs. So, we do have players that go on a pretty consistent basis, on a weekly basis, that go up for training or trials and things of that sort. We have a pretty consistent relationship as far as coaching education goes. So we're constantly sending up coaches to the main club to observe or to be observed potentially. So that relationship is a little bit unlike kind of maybe a stereotypical affiliate relationship with some others, just geographically speaking, because we are close enough. We do have kids, we do have coaches that are, consistently traveling to and from with whatever business they may have. Like I said, whether it's girls or boys going up to train or boys and girls being dual rostered and vice versa. So that part is a little bit unique. Probably compared to a lot of the clubs that I've seen and or been a part of. I've heard of, some other clubs that have blank FC, and it's like 1,000 miles across the country, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure we've all heard of that. So for us, the relationship is extremely unique in the sense that if we need something, we're a little bit more than just a phone call away. We can actually just get in the car and hop over. And so that's been really fun for me, particularly because now there's that tangible, kind of outward sign of, hey, we do have a direct pathway. We are unique. We do have something to offer that hopefully not a lot of other clubs, especially in our area, do have. So
I think that's so cool. Cause like you said, I know of some of clubs around that say, "Oh, we're partnered with blah blah blah," and you're like, "They're all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. How does that work?"
Yeah.
But the fact that your players can here, you're going to get to go experience some of the training with the next level and maybe possibly if you're good enough to play. And then I thought was cool. You even said for the coaching side. So for you, even as a director, you're getting constant kind of feedback on, what can I do with East to help you guys in Frisco and vice versa. And I think that's really cool that there's a kind of a give and take.
The interchanging of ideas, the interchanging of kind of programming, kind of the big 30,000 feet in the air views of things is especially valuable from my standpoint, because I can see what works and what doesn't work in their market, how I can tailor it to hopefully work in my market. And or there have been things that we do here that they quite enjoy, and they've kind of, man, I wonder how we could either scale it up or down to work there. And so, like you said, it's a little bit more tangible for us, just because we are such close proximity. And for the players, especially kind of those players that are, air quote, kind of ready for the next step, or whatever that means. It is just, as simple as hopping in the car and driving kind of that hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on who, what, when, and where. And so, like I said, having that kind of carrot at the end that to kind of dangle in front of those players is really, really important, because that helps us not only legitimize what we're doing, but it helps bode well to the community that we are a legitimate professional club. We do have the infrastructure and the programming to develop, whether you're a DA player or whether you just want to, have another positive experience. We have every tool, and we can pretty much, service anybody in between that realm. Like I said, whether they want to go off and play in the MLS, or whether they just want to do really well on Saturday and have a really, awesome time doing it. So that part's been really, really special. So.
And how did it come about that you became the director of the East branch of this?
Sure. So oddly enough, I was actually working for another MLS club before. I was with the Houston Dynamo in Houston, and my family and I were relocating back to the East Texas area. I'm actually from East Texas, very, very, very small town of Henderson. And when I was coming back, the youth club that I worked for prior to leaving, had actually been, I guess, absorbed by FC Dallas. And so a lot of the same people that were involved, a lot of the same administration, some of the same coaches were still involved. And so it was actually a really, really easy deal. When I knew I was relocating from Houston to East Texas, I just kind of called some people up and said, "Hey guys, I'm coming back. Is there anything I can do to help? I just want to help." And so by help, I think it was, okay, good, we can dump all this on him.
I got a sucker in line right here, people.
Yeah. So it was actually really, really easy fit, because they had a need for someone to kind of take in and kind of revamp everything. And I had what I thought was a really good chunk of experience and knowledge and a willingness to help. So it was actually a really kind of perfect marriage of the right person with the right needs at the right time to come back. And so it was pretty seamless, actually. Yeah. And it was kind of a no-brainer for me, especially kind of keeping in that whole, being with the Dynamo and another MLS club in a huge market like Houston. I liked that feel. I liked that impact. I liked that. I liked what we were able to do in Houston, and I wanted to be able to do some sort of semblance of that here in East Texas, because I've got a personal investment here. And so to have a platform like FC Dallas East Texas here in Tyler was super important. And so I saw it as a chance for me to maybe the romantic in me to make a difference. And so super, super easy. It was the right guy, hopefully the right guy. I'll tell you in about 10 years if I was the right guy, but right guy at the right time with the right opportunity.
So you have had some pretty cool experiences with the MLS level. What did you do prior to maybe in the Houston Dynamo type thing? Were you coaching? Were you like playing?
Yeah. How did I'll backtrack a little bit and kind of get a little backstory. From a playing perspective, everything was pretty stereotypical for me. I just grew up as a youth player, as a high school player, then I played a little bit in college. But the unique thing that happened was I played at a junior college, and then I didn't go off and finish my degree playing at a university. I actually took a student assistant role at UT Tyler here in the Tyler area, which at that point was a D3. Now it's a D2, but I got a chance to become the student assistant there while finishing my degree. So I was able to actually kind of grab a really unique opportunity for me to start my coaching career at a very, very good level with really two coaches, the men's and the women's coach are two big time mentors of mine. So Kenny and Steph were extremely instrumental in helping me kind of build my philosophy, helping me, first and foremost, give me a view into what it was like to be a real coach. But also just helped me tremendously. So in addition to that, at the same time, I had also gotten an opportunity with that local youth club I think I mentioned earlier that was absorbed by FC Dallas. So it was unique because I was able to teach, I had my own teams at the youth club and I was in there doing it, moving and grooving, but I was also being taught during my time as the student assistant at UT Tyler by Kenny and by staff. And so that went on for about 4 seasons. So that was a pretty unique. I finished all my degrees. I got my associates, got my bachelor's, had a good chunk of time there, really learning, cutting my teeth in coaching, but also I had a pretty good wealth of knowledge coming in because I was able to be around such prominent figures like Kenny and Steph. And then, kept doing that for a while until I took a year. I took off to Plano, Texas, which is in the Dallas metropolitan area. Did some ODP stuff there. Worked at another youth club, pretty big youth club there in Dallas. And then I actually got a call from a former colleague of mine at UT Tyler, who is a Houston guy. He ended up getting a job with the Dynamo. He was the youth programs director there. And he just called me up. I think it was 2013, 2014. He's like, hey, man, you want to come work for the Dynamo? And I hung up the phone, packed my bags, see you later. So I took off that was 2014. Yeah. So I went to Houston. And actually, in addition to that, so I landed there in Houston. I think it was in May or June. And then that April was when I started my high school coaching career. I got a job, landed a teaching and coaching job at a local high school there in Houston. And so I was pretty much coaching every single day. I was teaching PE, coaching varsity soccer, coaching there at the Dynamo and all of our ID programs and combines and camps and things of that sort. That the high school job morphed into then I took an athletic director role at our private school in Houston. And so all of the whole time I was coaching or around athletics the entire time until it was time for my family, which at that point it was just one child. We had Maddie when we got over here, but at that point it was my wife had gotten a job opportunity here in East Texas, and so she couldn't turn it down. We're both from the East Texas area, so we wanted to come back, raise our children here. And like I said, that's when the FC Dallas thing kind of slid in. So to answer your question, I don't think I ever really stopped coaching from a very, very young age. As a matter of fact, my first role as a coach actually came probably when I was maybe a freshman in high school. I had a younger brother that played. So right around the time you transition from a youth player to like a high school player, he started to play his youth career. My dad was my coach growing up, kind of my hero. My dad was his coach. And so it was a way I was his assistant, kind of air quotes. When I say assistant, I just jumped in the sessions the whole time. I didn't really help. Probably messed things up more than anything. But I actually became his little assistant, for a couple of years through my high school career and then even a little bit into college. And I remember I started my coaching badges during that time. I think at that point, I think it was called the G license. Now we have them named the grassroots licenses, right? But back then, your state association could offer licenses. And I think the lowest one was like a G, which was like a U6 through U8 license. And I remember taking that when I was still in high school, maybe a freshman or sophomore. And so that kind of little, although it was like a 3-hour course or whatever, that little 3-hour course was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to coaching that I have no clue about. So I kind of got a very early taste into that pathway. And like I said, at the same time, I got to see my dad kind of move and groove, and I saw what it was like to impact kids and impact communities like my dad did. And I wanted to do it. And so, through early on in my playing career, in high school, I was still coaching. Even when I went off to go to TJC to go play, I was still coaching in all of our camps and stuff. That's how I got connected to that youth club, Azuri. And they thought, I guess pretty highly of me. They handed me some teams, some pretty high profile teams at that point. And I just ran with it. I ended up getting my D license during the time. I got my C license all during the time. And so I just ran with it, man, at a very, very young age. And I've always been around the games, even when I was in administration, even when I became the athletic director at the school in Houston. I was still around sports every single day, or still around physical education. It even morphed into my graduate work is in coaching education and athlete development there at Xavier. And so I made a conscious decision to follow a passion of mine, and I'm a lifer, and I hope that I get to continue to do this every single day the rest of my life, because number one, I don't really know anything else other than that. But number two, I enjoy it. It is a passion. So I've been coaching since as long as I can remember. How good that was or at what levels, that's neither here nor there, I guess. But I've been around this game for quite some time, and I do love it. I do enjoy it. I hope I continue to learn. I hope I continue to bring some good things to the table, kind of wherever I fall. So.
I was gonna say that you ended up saying it at the end there, but I was like, man, this guy has tried all kinds of different things, and passion kept popping up in my head. Like, he just loves the game, and I don't really care at that point as you're learning and figuring out where you want it to be. Like, I don't know if I'm coaching youth or high school,
Yeah.
athletic director, I'm taking a course. The other thing that I think was really cool during that was you referenced, I think it was Kenny and Stephanie
Uh-huh.
or Steph,
Yep.
as mentors. What kind of impact? Because it sounds like to even mention them in that kind of liking, like just almost like on a friend type thing. How big of an impact did they make on you in terms of where you're at now?
Well, number one, first and foremost, they're not the only ones. There's been a couple other influential people, but them two especially, they they were instrumental in I think they allowed themselves to be vulnerable, in that they let somebody kind of from the outside, who really, I don't think I was credentialed enough to even get a sniff at what I was able to do.
Mhm.
And they were vulnerable enough or empathetic enough to say, hey, you know what, let's kind of bring this guy on and allow him a full-fledged glimpse into what it's like at the university level. So I'm extremely grateful to them, because they really opened their doors. I remember at the beginning, Kenny especially, he was very, very closed off as far as allowing us to really put our hands and stamp on things at the beginning. And that was kind of year one. But over time, he allowed us more and more flexibility, allowed us more and more trust to be able to kind of implement what we wanted, kind of our visions and our stamps on things. And so I really hold that in high regard, because again, to allow somebody to come in kind of from the outside, and allow yourself to be vulnerable and things that sort is a really, really hard thing to do. It would have been extremely easy for him to say, all right, hey, this is my way, this is how we're going to do it, you're going to do it my way, and not give me any sort of freedom or flexibility and allow me to grow. It's one of those deals. You can't you can't tangibly give somebody trust. You just give them opportunities to be trustworthy. And I think he did that. And hopefully I gained his trust over time by executing at as high a level as I could with whatever task it was, whether it was, washing the uniforms, or working with the back line, on the field, or whether it was ordering food for an away trip, or whether it was getting the goalkeeper ready, dealing with high balls in the air, because this team likes to play over the top. So they both were really impactful for me, because they allowed me to experiment and grow. And really, quite honestly, I look back and, selfishly, I'm like, man, I don't know that I would be able to do that, given their circumstances, and given those, the context behind it, because really, honestly, it was their programs, it was their jobs at stake, and they let this young kid kind of come in and hang out and be a part of it. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And that also, I hope that the people that I impact, or that work for me or with me, or whatever, I hope that they feel the same way, that I allow them those opportunities, that I empower them. Empower is a good word. How about that? That I empower them to go out and be successful. So those two I owe a lot to, because like I said, they could have very easily, yeah, come on in, wash this, do that, rinse that, whatever, and then just, clock out, punch out, and then leave it there. But they definitely made me feel a part. And I like to think, and I hope that any of the success that we did have there, that I was able to play a small part of it, and hopefully that kind of returns the favor. So um, hopefully that does them justice.
It's similar to the that idea of like pass it forward kind of thing, where if someone does unto you, then you keep. And I think the cool thing about that is that, and that's one of the things I love about doing this podcast is coaches love to talk the game. They love to share their experiences. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but for some reason, there's this thought that coaches are very like you. I think you used the word guarded, where like, I'll like you can be in the mix, but you're not in the mix. And like you said, I think coaches for the most part want to spread the love, and like you said, empower. What an awesome word to use, and what have you. And I think so cool that, like I said, it just something triggered in my head when you just brought up their names. Like, man, they made a really big impact on you during that experience, that time of kind of like lighting the fire for you.
No, I think I fast forward a little bit from, because that was during my undergrad time. So that was right around, 2009 to 2011, 2012. Those were kind of the prime years there at UT Tyler. Fast forward a little bit to kind of 2015, 2016, 2017. When I went from being a varsity, coach and a PE teacher to 1 year later, I was an athletic director. And so that transition also too is super impactful for me because it was the same deal. I was given a chance by somebody, Jeff Matthews, who's another mentor of mine in my educational life, who gave me a chance. He saw kind of what I did, kind of that 1 year that I was that coach and teacher there at the school, village school there in Houston. And then he turned around and offered me an opportunity to go and lead an athletic program and kind of build in something that he felt that I could do. And so those are, again, that word empower comes around again because he gave me that chance and said, hey, look, go do unto others, as has been done to you. And so that autonomy and that flexibility was really impactful for me because then I felt not only a responsibility to the school, but I felt a personal responsibility to him. Man, he's trusting me with, with his athletic program here at the school. And so I wanted to kind of go above and beyond for him. And so that was another experience that was extremely impactful, like I said, because then it wasn't so much about the X's and O's about what we did. I can't remember specifically what our records were or anything of that. So I think to be honest with you, I think we were just kind of okay at being okay with our sporting programs there. But that was fine because our athletes had a great time. Our parents had a great time. The school rallied around our kids. The school rallied around our athletic program. And that was the measure of our success. And so again, if nobody remembers a basketball score, I think we're a basketball school. If nobody remembers a basketball score, that's perfectly fine. But they remember events like Crash the Court, which was like a homecoming event we did. Like they remember, the house system that we built, and you got points for, going above and beyond during athletic event, and they won, points for their house, and they got to stand up in front of the school and say, yeah, we did this, that, and the other. Like those were the things I think that were super impactful. And like I said, I wanted to create those not only for the kids, for their memory, but I wanted to do that for Jeff because he gave me a chance. And so that there goes that whole kind of pay it forward, kind of empowering other people to go out. So that's and all this to be said, it's all a huge passion of mine. Everything about this is whether it's soccer, sports, impacting people, leading, whatever, it all kind of lumps itself into kind of one bucket for me personally. So any chance in any capacity I get to do that, I'll jump all over. So like I said, number one, because I don't know anything different, but number two, just because I love it. So
I think the cool thing is about all of the things that you've talked about, like you've even kind of referenced it, is it wasn't about the scores. I'm not here talking about my results or what we did tactically. Like we're talking about the impact that people made. Like you had so many opportunities from doing athletic directing to teaching and the other thing that I thought was really big was you're in Houston, you're part of the Dynamo. You're like, dude, we're crushing it. We're connected with the MLS. and then your wife gets an opportunity to come home, and it sounds like it wasn't even like, well, wait a minute, babe. I mean, I'm here in the MLS. What it was,
Yeah.
you're grounded enough to know, like, you're part of this too. Your wife is part of the whole mix as well in the equation, her happiness and her and what have you. And like you knew, I want to find a way to be make an impact wherever it is I end up because you've done it throughout your whole time growing up.
I almost think there was a bit of I almost think there was a bit of an incentive for me to come back in that, okay, I do have this big bulk of experience and this big chunk of know-how. It was almost like a calling, like you need to bring that back home type deal. It's kind of time for you to come back and bring that back here. And so that may be a little bit romantic of me, but yeah, it was a no-brainer because I knew that I was prepared to come home to, number one, raise my kids here. Well, kid at that point. I didn't realize we're having a second one until a little bit later. But number one, I wanted to raise my child in this area. I value everything about this area. I value the family feel. I value the community feeling about East Texas. But number two, it was easy because I knew that I could, or I trusted myself enough to say, you know what, I can replicate this. It may not be on the same scale, and it may not be in the same markets or necessarily with a badge behind it, but I can replicate those feelings. I can replicate that pride, that empowerment. I can replicate those things kind of wherever I go. So yeah, it was definitely tough. Leaving Houston, it was a ton of fun. It was a fun place to be. I had a lot of firsts. I had my firstborn son there. I won my first state championship as a high school coach there. The very first MLS club I worked for was there. So I had a lot of these firsts there. I met Kelly there. But at the same time, it was also very much, I was at peace with leaving it all there because I knew I could replicate it, or I was quietly confident enough to say, you know what, I need to take this back home because and again, there's that word romantic. I wanted to hopefully be the catalyst for the future people like me who just love this and need a vehicle to go out and do it, and so that's why it's important for me doing what I do now, with the club to, yes, forming the teams and forming the player pools and stuff like that to feed into the club is great. But I think where I get most of my self, gratification is knowing that hopefully we can impact, for lack of a better word, the rest of those JoJos that are out there who, again, just need that spark, just need that vehicle, just need that little bit of whatever the case may be to go out and impact, hopefully the world, and again, sorry, I'm a romantic, it's whatever, but I do think that way. So
that's so cool. The other thing I would say, we've come back, you're looking to make impact. What are some of the things that at FC Dallas East Texas that you try to do to do some of those impactful things?
Sure. So, I think I'm a firm believer in order to be great, I think it's one of those, you need to do your ordinary tasks extraordinarily well. And I think that's the measure of greatness or that's how I define it. So starting off right from the get-go when I got here, my only task was formation and creation of teams at the academy level or the juniors level to then hopefully sustain themselves into our select program, right? So that's the easy part. I think that's the part that we kind of poured into heavily, and that became my day-to-day. As we got a grasp on that, it firmly became evident that we need to do more. I felt a professional responsibility in that we are the professional club here in town or in the area, to be honest with you. We have to do more. We do, you're fortunate in the area, we do have a large number of recreational programs. So that are all run by either the municipality in each town, or maybe like a YMCA or maybe a church organization, right? So East Texas is really littered with a lot of those, but they're also very disconnected and not very conjoined, and not as I don't think have necessarily the infrastructure to really put forth a product to retain as much as we all want, right? So I think from a big picture, we want kids playing from age 5 and they go all the way up to U16, and then they go play high school for their community or their high school, and they have a great time. I think everybody would agree that that's not the case everywhere. As a matter of fact, like, and I don't think it's a secret, there's research to show it, kids are starting later, they're quitting sooner, their burnouts, early specialization, all those different factors that play into it. And so although we do have a number of organizations that are offering soccer, we're not seeing the game grow as much as we think it can. And so that's where I think we at the club, me personally, have a legitimate professional responsibility. We do feel like we have the right infrastructure as far as the human resources. We do have a professional staff of coaches that are well trained, that are accredited, that are licensed, that are degreed, that can go out and impact. And so for us, some tangible ways that we've done it, number one, first and foremost, was start a conversation. To be completely honest with you, that was legitimately the number one thing we had to do first. Reach out to these organizations and start a conversation about collaboration versus competition, because I think there's a bit of a stigma. There's a bit of a stereotype in that we're the club organizations. We're going to come in, pick off your best players, and the hell with everybody else, right? We just want your top kids. We're going to steal them away from you. They're going to come over here, and then we don't want anything to do with you because we're an elitist group. We're pompous, we're arrogant, and the game is ours and not y'all's. And y'all can go play on Saturday mornings, and we're going to take off and go play in the leagues and downs. It's not the case. That's not the case at all, as a matter of fact. So tangible ways, like you mentioned, first and foremost, starting conversations. And some of that was cold calling, some of that was rekindling, old relationships, some of that was kind of changing the narrative and things of that sort. So that was number one, the ultimate ground level way that we are hopefully impacting the communities here, like you mentioned. Number two, those organizations that did want to collaborate, that did have an open mind, that really were proactive and kind of moving themselves in a different direction. It was actually the bus was driven by them. It's almost case by case. One city or one municipality or one church organization would be like, hey, look, we have a great group of coaches that are volunteers, and we've got a great, strong group of kids, but these coaches don't have the tools. They're dads, they're baseball players, they're football players. Again, you're in Texas, you're in football, you're in football heaven down here, or you're in baseball heaven down here. So soccer really takes a backseat. We're just now getting to the crop of parents like myself that played growing up, right? Because 30 years ago, 40 years ago, those parents then, they were all playing baseball, they were all playing Pop Warner football, right? So we were getting to these organizations that, hey, we've got a great group of volunteer parents and we've got a great group of kids. We just need to impact those parents, or sorry, those volunteer coaches, give them the tools so that they can go out and impact the kids and hopefully give them a good enough experience where they want to come back, right? Which is their ultimate goal: recruitment of new players and retaining them to stay in their organization. So perfect. All we do for them is we do coaching clinics for them. We go out and we say, hey guys, here's a coaching clinic, here's a couple of tips, here's, they don't necessarily get a degree or a license for it, but that's just ways that we can exponentially grow our impact. Instead of going out there and helping one team of 12 kids, we can go do a coaching course with 12 coaches who then go back to their teams, and now we've exponentially grown that impact, right? So matter of fact, I just did that 2 or 3 weeks ago with one of our partners. Just a straight up coaching clinic, 2 hours, a little bit in the classroom, and then straight outside, because everybody doesn't want to watch the slides. Everybody wants to go see the new drills, right? A little frustrating, but that organization had an immediate need, and we didn't impose ourselves. We let them drive the bus. What do you need from us? Perfect, we can do that. Boom, go. Then on the flip side, we have organizations that say, hey, we do have a lot of great volunteer coaches, for whatever reason, we've got, they maybe former players or whatever the case may be, but we have trouble with, player retainment and recruitment because, maybe they're not playing enough or they're not getting enough games, right? Okay, so then let's create some in-house kind of intramural type field tournaments or 3v3s and stuff like that, something to help the players. So with the other organization, it was very, right? With this one, it's very player driven. Or let's create training programs, right? For those players to feel like they're continuing to develop and things of that sort. And then again, there's even programs that, hey, look, we've got the players, we've got the coaches, we need help on our board. We don't have a strategic vision and mission and stuff like that. Okay, well, we can be kind of that consultant arm for you guys. Here's kind of a 1, 3, 5-year plan for you guys, as far as from things ranging from field design and layout to strategic partnerships in the community. So really kind of anything and everything in between we've kind of accomplished, to be completely honest with you. And it was all driven, and I think the key was, it was driven by the organizations, not really us. I never wanted it to feel as if we were trying to impose our will, or we were trying to come in and revamp and reorganize in our vision. It was really, how can we collaborate instead of go in and kind of coerce you into doing whatever. So, like I said, we've had coaching clinics, we've had player development programs, we've had camps, and we've even sat in on board meetings at the board level, as far as, hey, have you guys considered, your leasing agreement with the city going this far instead of that far? Have you considered about buying different, plots of land? So again, everything from camps, clinics, coaching, and all the way up to kind of strategic leadership, we have tried to impact. Like I said, not so much on a formal basis, as far as we have these, we don't have necessarily have a brochure where you can come in and buy X package or Y package. It's really down to kind of agreements and conversations as far as what they need to drive that bus wherever it is they want to go. And then honestly too, there's been some organizations that don't want to be helped at all, and that's perfectly fine as well. So I think my job is to make the club accessible and available, and if and when somebody does want our services, that we're able to collaborate in whatever it is that they need. Anything outside of that is all gravy. I think the main stigma for us is, oh, they're just coming in so that they can kind of weasel their way in and steal the players. Two things with that. Number one, it's just not possible logistically, a lot of these areas that we work with. And number two, it's just a bad business model at that point. I think that's exactly what we're trying not to do. We're hopefully giving them the tools to, hey, here's that word again, to empower themselves to create that within their communities. Very, very few and far between do we actually really get a tangible player that, a diamond in the rough that actually comes out and is able to make the drive to Tyler, on a consistent basis and make an impact. For whatever reason, it's not to say those players aren't out there. It's just too few and far between. But if we can go to a city or whatnot and impact those 200 players, and those 200 players all continue to play soccer, and they associate FC Dallas with their positive soccer experience, then we've won. And so did that association, so did we, and so did the game in general. So to answer your question, like I said, tangible things that we've done, like I said, number one, first and foremost, engage in conversation, open up dialogue. And then number two, really let the organizations dictate what they need. And we right now consistently work with about 5 organizations, and our impact within those organizations really differs between one and the other. And some of them are more in depth, some of them are more superficial. It really depends on them. And so, things like training programs, coaching education programs, camps, clinics, invitations, IDs, things of that sort are all kind of within that scope of us impacting them. So, and then on the flip side to all of that, we're in such a rural area in East Texas, connecting the game in general, but connecting the brand. There's a lot of people who don't know what FC Dallas is, or who we are, or who the main club is. They'll honestly probably never, either they've never seen FC Dallas, they probably never will see FC Dallas, because of TV rights, but that's a whole nother conversation. But we have to connect the brand and the game in general, regardless of what badge I have on. I think it's our responsibility to connect the game to these areas. So that's also super important, and that's kind of one of those 30,000 feet in the air type romantic views. But at the end of the day, if nothing else, hopefully we've connected to the game to those communities, and they've got a positive outlook on the game because of something we did.
So a couple of things that really resonated with me was one, the conversation piece of we're not just coming in, like you said, with a brochure that says, here, let's cookie cutter and let's just put it all in. This is going to fix everything. Um, the other thing was I love that your focus as with FC Dallas, East Texas is more on we're support and we're problem solvers. Like we're going to be here to help you, if it's infrastructure, if it's coaching or whatever. I think that's so cool because like you said, and I think everybody runs into that issue of the rec side versus like the travel clubs side, and how do those work both together? And I think the cool thing is instead of keeping it separate, you're reaching across and saying, look, we'll come and help you. And I think the other thing that you realize from your experiences from those that have made impact on you is your actions and how you go about doing things speaks so much more than words. So kind of like you talked even earlier about people with this, like, well, we're a partnership with so-and-so who's 1,000 miles away. Well, that's cool, but how does that impact me here where my feet are at? And whereas you can physically go, look, man, I know exactly, like I'm from this area. I love this area. I've lived here. I know the struggles. I know some of the things that you're dealing with. But we just want to give you the opportunity to, so this 20 kids, can we get it to 25? Can we get better coaches where your coaches feel more positive with that? I think the whole outlook is so stinking cool for what you're doing. I think it's something that others should, I would think would be great to kind of build off of. Because to be honest, there's a handful of clubs in the US who are really, really high level, but the majority of us we should be in the business of trying to, like you said, can I get that next JoJo to love the game and possibly go and become a coach or be a player or impact others the way that you've been impacted?
That for me has, and it's funny because I feel like I've been extremely fortunate to go on some pretty high level thing. I've had a cup of tea at most levels, and so in each of those levels, they all have their kind of definitions of success. But I think slowly now, my focus is starting to turn on less and less about success and more about impact. I can't promise you that 10 years ago I wasn't just obsessed about what ring can I win next or what tournament can we win at the weekend or whatever. And I was that way. I absolutely was that way. And I'll be honest with you, I still am. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love to compete. I love the thrill of it, and the journey probably more often than not is the trophy. But I think the more and more I go about my career now, it's becoming more and more about impact and how can I set up more people to succeed long after I'm gone, And so it's a little bit of a struggle for me at sometimes. It does kind of eat away at me every time that I'm kind of not in the mix of things, or I'm not necessarily on the sideline full time a whole lot anymore. But the overwhelming sensation of knowing that I had impacts and positive impacts on people and players and organizations is far becoming something that I value way more than any ring or medal or anything else, like I said. So although those things were important in the past, those things have helped shape me. Those winning trophies and losing and all, they've all helped shape me to where I am. So I'm thankful for those. I think there's a place for those. I think there's absolutely some huge value in those. And I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of my successes in my previous years of my career have helped me open doors to be able to do the things that I'm doing now. So there's definitely value in those things. I just think now my whole mindset is shifting on, what really is a win, for me. And right now, in my chapter in my life, where I'm at geographically, where my feet are, like you mentioned, my definition of winning is definitely changing. And that's not to say that I won't step back into those kind of air quote competitive arenas. I do have some high aspirations to do some more things. I don't think I'm done in the game at all, as far as like being on the sideline and reaching for the next trophy or ring or whatever. But I just think, given the platform that I've given now, I want to try to make as much impact as possible, knowing that I have the ability and the experience and hopefully the foresight to be able to carry it out. So it's rewarding. It's tough sometimes. Don't get me wrong. I do envy all of the guys that are out there moving and grooving 100% of the time. I miss it a lot. I'm a competitor at heart, but I just think, knowing what I know now, I'd be doing myself, and I like to think I'd be doing the community and the game a disservice, sorry, if I didn't put forth as much effort as I do into our outreach programs, especially here in a place that means so much to me.
So you mentioned kind of that burning passion to compete and whatever. Is there a kind of master plan or an idea of where does JoJo want to get to the first team of MLS and be working at that level? Or are you happy in like a support role, or what do you kind of foresee maybe?
I think a lot of it is going to be driven by my family dynamics. I've got 2 young kids. I got a 5-year-old and I got a 3-year-old. So they play a lot in my decisions, not only day to day, but kind of long term as well. And so to answer your question, yes, I'd love to be a first team coach in the MLS, or maybe even somewhere in Europe. I'd love to be on a national team staff one day. I grew up adoring the Kobe Jones and the Jeff Agus and the Eddie Pope and the young, blonde Landon Donovan and DeMarcus Beasley and those guys, Eddie Wolf and Josh Wolf and those dudes. I remember one of my favorite soccer memories of all time is waking up at like 3 a.m. to watch U.S. Mexico 2002 World Cup with my uncle there in Houston, as a matter of fact. I remember watching those guys. It's like, man, and seeing the old school crest. I'll be honest with you, I don't really like the new crest for the Federation. I like the old one better. I got the old one hanging in my garage. And so I think from then on, I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, I either want to play for them or coach for them or do something, And so I think now, realizing the path that I've been on, I want to continue to try. I would absolutely love to work for the Federation at some point in time. I had kind of my chance last year. I was going to go and get my grassroots instructor license. However, COVID hit. Actually, right around this time last year, I was preparing to do that. I think I bought tickets to get over to Kansas City, and I'd already started my pre-course assignments and all that stuff, and then the country shut down. So that was really, really fulfilling for me. That sense of pride, knowing that, oh wow, this is a chance for me to kind of get my foot in the door with something that I aspired to since I was very young. So the national team setup in some way, shape, form, or fashion is definitely on my radar. I would love to get back into the MLS because I was a lifelong fan of the MLS. I remember the Dallas Burn. Matter of fact, I knew some of the players. I still know some of the players from the Dallas Burn that are in the Metroplex that I still talk to. So, and then my connections with the Dynamo. I would love to get back into the MLS. I don't know whether it's on the first team setup or maybe even the academy, but somewhere in and around that realm would be awesome. Same thing. I loved the college game. I loved the aspect of being able to impact guys that were, kind of old enough to be able to reason and make their own decisions, but still young enough to be impressionable. And you could really set them up for life, like I was. And that's where kind of like, Stephanie and Kenny came in, especially, Coach Clements at TJC. He was really, really impactful for me as a player. And so that realm is extremely enticing to me, to be able to get back to the college game. And then again, I like the school setting. I spent 3-4 years as a varsity coach and teaching in the high school, and then obviously in athletic administration in school settings. So there's a couple of different pathways for me. I'll say this. I just want to be able to continue to be around the game and have an impact. Where that is, how I get there, what level, I'll leave that to the people that make way more money than me to decide. But I want to be able to impact people, impact organizations, impact the game, and then hopefully, if my winnings continue to be just having that impact and seeing kids smile, great. If that ends up, turning into, monetary, tangible monetary sums of money, that'd be great as well. And then, I'm certainly not going to say no to winning some more rings or medals or champion. I mean, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I think I mentioned it before. In my opinion, greatness is doing your ordinary tasks extraordinarily well. And I think that's the only thing I'm focused on right now, is where my feet are right now and doing the best job I can at doing it. And so everything else I'll leave up to the cosmic, being in the universe that controls all. So I'll leave that to them.
JoJo, this has been so stinking cool. I've loved kind of hearing about how you've kind of bibbity bopped through so many different, like, almost hats that you literally, you're wearing a hat now, different hats that you've worn, and then where you're at now. If people want to connect with you and maybe catch up on, what's going on at FC Dallas, East Texas, or have some questions about athletic director or high school coaching or any of that information, or just Texas and Texas soccer in general, what's a great way to get in touch with you?
First and foremost, social media. I am on Twitter, at Juarez2560 on Twitter. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. They can absolutely reach out to me there. I think the other avenue that's pretty viable is the FC. Just kind of Google FC Dallas East Texas. Hit that in your search bar. It'll pull up our website. As a matter of fact, I think my face is like the very first thing that pops up there. So my email and my cell phone is there as well. They're able to go on the website, shoot me an email, FCDETXJunior, Tyler@gmail.com. And so multiple ways, social media and probably my email address are probably the two ways most likely that they can get a hold of me. So.
And I will share all of that information in the notes for the episode on the podcast, on YouTube, all the things that I share, and I'll put them out there on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to wrap this thing up, JoJo. This was so stinking awesome. Loved it. This is Carrying Coach's Corner Chats, and I'm out. Peace.